Gig Gab, episode 523 for Monday, March 2nd, International Rescue Cat Day 2026. It's even the right song. Woohoo! Greetings, folks, and welcome to Gig Gab, the show by, for, and about working musicians. Our sponsor today is gusto.com/giggab, where you get 3 months free when you run your first payroll over there. We will talk more about them in a little bit. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton. I had a double yesterday, which I'm going to talk about 2 gigs in a row, 2 different bands, 2 different places. But I will introduce my guest co-host first, because my guest co-host is someone that's been at a lot of my gigs, was at one of the 2 gigs yesterday, and also is going to South by Southwest for the first time. And so we are going to talk about that and what it takes to think about going to South by and how to approach it and how to be overwhelmed by it and all of those things. So, Lisa Hamilton, welcome to Gig Gab. How are you?
First time for everything.
There is a first time for everything. That's right. This is not, Lisa is my wife, for those of you who haven't listened long enough to know her name. But you've never been on Gig Gab before.
I've never been on any of your podcasts before.
I don't think that's true.
Oh, I was on Mac Geek Gab once.
Yeah, you reviewed something on Mac Geek Gab.
Yep.
I remember doing this up here. Yeah, the room was backwards. It was on the other side. But, you know, nobody watching or listening cares. It sounds the same. So the first thing, I don't know that you need an introduction more than that. You play piano for only yourself.
Yes. Not even for you.
That's right.
Me and the dog.
Well, lucky dog. But you have been a fan of live music for a long time. That's how we met. And you have become actually quite a proficient front of house engineer as well.
Proficient. That's a fine word.
Okay. Lisa does sound for Bitter Pill. Bitter Pill was my first gig yesterday. And Lisa was not doing sound. This was festival scenario for Bitter Pill yesterday. 45-minute sets. One band after the other, and every one of them starts at the top of the hour. So yes, 15-minute changeover for everything. This was down in Lowell, New Hampshire, called Winterfest, and yes, it was on February 28th, so it was on Saturday of this prior week, and it actually worked out great. The weather was perfect. It was sunny for the first time in New England, and as long as any of us can remember. Most of Winterfest happens outside, but the bands play in a tent, which is heated, evidently more for the bands than for the patrons.
Yeah, it was not warm in that tent. But they had the door open for the beer line, so
Maybe
it was
that's
probably
why.
warmer if they had closed it up.
If there wasn't such a long beer line. Well, that's kind of how these things work. That's how they fund themselves, I assume. It was hot on stage. We got there. It was very well organized. We got there early enough to sort of get our stuff in. I was only using breakables on the house drum set, so that obviously changeovers could happen faster. Breakables just means kicks, kick pedal, snare, and cymbals usually, and that's what I used. Changeover happened fine. The band before us started right at 3:00. We were at 4:00, so it was like, all right, here we go. And I'm in there, being responsible, watching the band before us, and I started to actually take a little video. The keyboard player was taking this little solo, and this band was great. And suddenly, kind of as I panned, I was off to house right of the stage, but still in front of the stage. And as I started panning left, I realized, wait a minute, there's someone on the ground. And my first thought was, well, this happens at every Phish show. But then I realized, wait, we're not at a Phish show. We need to go and get security. So we did. And paramedics responded so fast. They were in. But that ended the band set. I mean, this was at 3:42 p.m. that this happened. And it was like, okay, well, so much for running on time. believe it or not, I didn't realize this, but they cleared the house. I was so involved in just getting stuff set up on stage. They had the other band, kind of take their stuff down, and then we started putting our stuff up. And the room was empty but for the paramedics and the person that they were helping. And we thought, oh man, they really what a way to clear a room. But evidently they had intentionally cleared the room.
Yep. I was outside enjoying the sunshine and went to come in and see the band, and the doors were closed. They weren't letting anybody in. Giant line. People were complaining the beer tent was closed, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, right. Nothing about the band. They didn't care about the band.
No,
the beer tent.
Not the band. But so I knew I had come in with you earlier, so I knew where the band entrance was. So I avoided the crowd and acted like I knew where I was going, because I did.
Yeah.
And walked in the band door because I had no idea why things were shut down. And that's when I saw all the paramedics. And so I just kind of hung side stage and got my good spot until they let the house in.
Amazing. Yeah, they really didn't let the house in until we started playing. And that was kind of a cool thing. Like we were, obviously we got set up on stage. We started, I saw the clock. They had two huge clocks on either side of the stage. Like they were both downstage off to the right and left of the stage. So it was really easy to see, huge digital clocks. And I saw the clock tick from 3:59 to 4 o'clock. And I knew we were ready to start. And I was like, all right, we're going to start before 4:01. And sure enough, we were able to count in the first song before the clock ticked over. And then it was really interesting, kind of starting the groove to our first tune and just having people just streaming in. It's like, oh, okay, all right, so we're not going to be playing to no one. I understand. And it was at that moment, I think we all realized that they had intentionally kind of sealed off the room while the paramedics worked, which obviously made perfect sense. It just didn't dawn on me, at least. And I speak to some of the other members of the band, they kind of felt the same way. They're like, oh, what's happening here? But yeah, the set went really well. It was fun playing for a festival crowd that, most of whom did not know the band, and really working to win them over. Bitter Pill, in a sense, we thrive in that environment. There's a lot of everyone in that band has been involved in the theater world at some way. And so there is a lot of awareness of how to sort of the always be performing ethos takes on a completely different vibe in Bitter Pill. Recently, we were setting up with another band, and not Saturday, but, over the last 6 months or something down in Boston. And somebody said, oh, well, you don't want the spotlight to shine too much on you or whatever. And I, without thinking about it, my response was, oh, no. In this band, if you want attention, you have to take it. And Tomer, our acoustic guitar player, looked at me and he laughed and he's like, that's not false. And it really is in that band. Everybody knows how to grab the baton, as it were, which is great. And everybody really knows how to perform, and it's a pleasure. So that set went really well, and we ended at 4:46, but it's okay. 1 minute over, it's going to be all right. We made our exit off the stage very, very efficiently, and the set went well. It was all, we were all using monitor wedges. There was no in-ears because of the way the festival was set up. And it was fine. In a sense, it was survival mode, but it was fairly good for the survival mode that it was. So, it all worked out okay.
Funny thing that you don't know is, while I was standing in the crowd watching the band, there was a couple behind me, and they were like, wow, this band is really cool. And the woman says to the man, what would you call this music? And the guy's like, oh, it's rock and roll. And then he's like, well, no. And he's like, it's rockabilly. And he's like, no. And he's like, it's blues. And he's like, maybe, kinda. And that went on the whole set. It was really amusing.
Wow. Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Bitter Pill, we've come to describe it as haunted rhythm and bluegrass, but joyful haunted rhythm and bluegrass in the confines of the band being called Bitter Pill. So, you got to kind of know what you're going to get. The themes of our songs are not necessarily the most joyful, but it's impossible for us not to be joyful when we play the music. So I think there's something about that dichotomy that really works. It was a good gig, and all ran on time, but for our 1 minute over. But that was a welcome change. I think I talked this summer about a festival that we played where we started so late that we wound up only playing, I think, 16 minutes or 17 minutes or something. It was, because of their, they just, the schedule just ran so far over. But Saturday was great. Everything, a well-oiled machine for the town of Lowell, Massachusetts for their Winterfest. So kudos to them. And then gig number 2 was Casual Gravity, the cover band that I play in, the 80s kind of rock cover band that I play in. We played a 3-set night, a little closer to home, but half the distance between where we were in Lowell, which is a little over an hour, back at the Chop Shop, which is a club I've played with them many times. And it was that gig was interesting. There was a birthday party happening in the club. It's kind of a biker bar in that it's extremely much of a biker bar. There's no kind of about it. I've always loved playing for biker crowds because they are, I don't know, I always find biker crowds very appreciative. They're there to have fun. There's no pretentiousness. It's just, and everybody's there to support each other. They give you the shirt off their back if you needed something or whatever. So I always find those crowds very appreciative. I played for a lot of biker crowds down in Texas when we lived down there too, and it was a great night, great crowd. After the first set, one of our fans that comes to see us fairly regularly came up and said, "Okay," and he actually runs a radio station. I wish I'd had the name of it. It's like an online radio station that he mixes. I'll see if I can dig up what it is. I'll put a link in the show notes for Sean's radio station. But he came up to me after the first set, and he's also a sound engineer, and he came to me and said, "Hey, look, the sound, like there's no bass." And I'm like, "Okay, you mean no bass guitar or what?" He's like, no, sorry. And he got far more articulate. He's like, "There's just no feel to the low end." He's like, I don't want to say that it sounds tinny, but it and I knew exactly what he meant, right? It was just, and then he said something really interesting. He's like, it's like there's no 100 hertz there. I'm like, okay, great. Now at this club, they used to have their own sound engineer, and I don't know what happened, but he no longer works there, and they no longer employ a sound engineer. The owner of the club, Bill, is fairly well versed in how to use his mixer. I don't think he would call himself a sound engineer, but I mean, he's always willing to like learn and ask questions, and and he's fairly competent with it. But there are things that he just hasn't learned yet, right? And also, he's the owner of the whole place, and so on a busy Saturday night, you can imagine his attention is splintered at best, and so he gets the band kind of rolling, and then he has to move on. And so Sean was like, "Yeah," and I went and looked. And I don't know how it got set this way. We use our splitter snake there for our ears, so our mix is what we want. The front of house mix, I looked at the bass guitar on it, and it had a low pass filter on it that was set to about 90 hertz, which is to say that everything above 90 hertz was completely rolled off of this signal. So it's like, oh yeah, like I would normally put a high pass filter on that starts at maybe 40 or 50 hertz. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it winds up kind of focusing the energy of the sound. You're still going to get plenty of that thump and feel in your body while having that kind of lower mids presence. And so I was just doing this very quickly, and I was doing it blind because we weren't playing when I did it. But I set the low pass filter up at about 700 hertz, 600 hertz, just to give it, like, I knew where Rob's bass was sitting for that night because we actually had to re-EQ it in our ears. So I already had a sense of where the energy of Rob's instrument was. Rob's our bass player. And so I did that and really just created a kind of a very safe, shelf of sound. But I told Sean, I was like, all right, when we go up for the second set, like, you got to tell me if I've created a terrible problem here. And within 2 bars, I got, 2 thumbs up from him. And he's like, okay, problem solved. I was like, all right, great. But yeah, I don't know why the PA would ever have gotten set that way, but it wound up being a great night. People, especially for the second and third sets, people were up and moving. Like, you definitely need that kind of low mid rumble, even just lows, I guess, but that range from, 90 to about 200 hertz just to keep people moving without it being, obviously that's a range that can really get woofy and muddy in a room, which was my concern. But obviously that didn't happen. And yeah, it wound up being a really fun night. Band played fairly well. We had some strange mistakes, like just really, I don't know where it all came from, but we had some interesting, the first song of the second set, I wasn't paying as much attention to the music because I was sort of focused on Sean and sound and all that stuff. And it was Machine Head was the first song. And we skipped the first chorus somehow. And I don't know, like, we all knew it happened, obviously, but I would have said it was my fault. We aren't able to have this conversation until, an hour later when the set's finished. And everybody in the band had the same thought, like, oh, I'm sorry, that was on me. And Tom's like, that's on me. And Jeff's like, that's on me. It's like, okay, well, sure. None of us knows whose fault it was. That's very interesting. Usually, one person who knows their right says, okay, it's that guy. But no, none of us could tell you. But it was fine. We all kind of looked at each other, and then Tom started saying the next verse, and it was like, great. So the song wound up being about, half the length of what it normally is, but it was all fine. It all worked out. And we actually had a really great night. It was a lot of fun, which was nice for a 2-show day. I had the perfect amount of time between the 2 shows, because after I finished with Bitter Pill, we had about an hour before I had to leave to go back to the other club. And if I had gotten to the other club early, it would have been just sitting around at the club earlier. Like, I didn't need the extra time. It was spaced out perfectly. I swore last year that I wasn't going to do any of these 2 gig days this year, and very quickly did away with that. So.
I knew that was a lie as soon as you said it.
Yeah, but the one I did last year was actually at that other festival that we were talking about, where we played 17 minutes, but it was much tighter on time. And so, like, the stress of that and having to go set up a drum set at the other club, at the second club before, so that that was the procedure that day. And on this one, I was like, no, guys, we're not going to. And they're like, well, but it's at 4:00. I'm like, oh, 4:00, 8:30. Okay, this is actually totally doable, and it worked out nice. But we were able to hang out and see a little bit of the next band, and
it was lovely. Yeah, it worked out really nice.
Yeah. All right. So that's my gig weekend. What was your gig weekend like, folks? Let me know if you have interesting stories or anecdotes or things that you learned to share. Feedback at giggabpodcast.com. Let me know, and we'll talk about it and share on the show, because we like to do that. We are going to talk about South by Southwest, and that's what Lisa's here for. The next thing, and I really appreciate that you give me the opportunity to do this. The next thing that I want to do is I want to tell you about our sponsor. So, here at GigGab, we're all about helping you always be performing, right? And that includes the unsexy stuff, right? Like payroll and taxes. That's where our sponsor Gusto comes in. Gusto is online payroll and benefits software built for small businesses, right? It's all in one, remote friendly, and incredibly easy to use. So you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. And this means you can pay your bandmates and crew, you can handle contractors and W-2s, you can have Gusto automatically file all the right tax forms so that you're not getting dinged by those surprise penalties, right? Your drummer in Denver, your tour manager in Nashville, and designer in Berlin can all get paid cleanly while you stay focused on rehearsals, booking, and that next great gig. It's payroll and HR tools that are modern, delightful, and built for small businesses like all of ours, right? So if you want to spend less time buried in spreadsheets and more time on stage, try Gusto today at gusto.com/giggab and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/giggab. One more time, gusto.com/giggab. Try it out. I think you're going to like it. And my thanks to Gusto for sponsoring this episode. All right. So last year in late March, right after South by Southwest, I had Josh Rosenberg from the Roadcase podcast on the show to talk about ostensibly this same topic from our standpoint, two people who had just attended South by Southwest, two people who had attended for quite some time, many years in a row, and giving some kind of a debrief of it and some advice about how to approach it in future years. But at that time, we even said we're not quite sure what South by Southwest 2026 is going to look like, because no one knew at that point what it was going to look like without the Austin Convention Center being there. Indeed, the Austin Convention Center has been demolished and is in the process of being rebuilt, but I don't think it's back until 2029 or something like that. So we're going to have some time here while they figure that out. And what we didn't have as part of that conversation was someone who has never attended before asking questions of those of us that have. And I tried, Josh actually really wanted to be a part of this episode. Our schedules were just such that we couldn't make it work. But so that's why I have Lisa here, because last year at South by Southwest, while I was there, I called you, one morning to kind of tell you about our day, my day. And that day did include Josh, of course. And it was a Saturday morning. So it was after the Friday day, which was really like one of my favorite days at South by Southwest ever. That was the day I'd seen Preservation Hall Jazz Band and Ali, and the radio day stage was really great that day too. And it was just a fantastic day. And I told you all about it. And do you remember what you said?
I remember saying, oh my gosh, I need to do this. And after years of living in Austin and being told how terrible South by was and that it brought the crowds and it was awful and never go, and then listening to you go for decades and kind of, I don't know, it's always been kind of interesting but overwhelming to me at the same time. I think your talk about Preservation Hall Jazz Band and some of that other stuff you were doing that day, I had a little FOMO, and I was like, that's it, I'm going next year.
That's what you said. You said, don't let me not go. And so I was like, okay, well, that's fine. Like every year I would invite you to go. Like you would love this. In fact, I remember the first year that I wound up attending, I wound up attending by accident. We had lived in Austin, as Lisa just said, and the whole time we were there, we bought into the Austin South by So What mentality. Avoid it like the plague. It's oversold. It's both from a capacity standpoint, but also just from a hype standpoint. It doesn't live up to the hype. That's what everybody said. That you can see live music in Austin whenever you want, and all of that is true. At least the facts of it, that you can see live music whenever you want, but the reality is it's actually still a great thing. Regardless of where your home is, you need to be able to just attend South by to get the most of it. And I think that's where a lot of Austin residents fall short, because their houses are close enough to downtown that it wouldn't make sense to just, pause your life for 7 days or however many days you choose to do it and just immerse yourself in it. I think that's the part that makes it not enjoyable by Austin residents. Of course, there are plenty of Austin residents who do exactly that. They go essentially on vacation in their own town. And that would be the way to have done it when we lived in Austin. But yeah, I wound up going by accident. We had opened a Backbeat Media office in Austin, in South Austin. And we were moving in that week. I was down there, buying and building IKEA furniture and hosting pizza parties with the staff while we were doing all that. And for other reasons that I'm still not sure why I chose this, but I wound up having a hotel downtown. It was a cheap hotel. One of my old nerding clients, people that I would do computer consulting for, had a deal, and so I could stay at a Hampton Inn for $29 a night, which I did happily. And so I had this hotel downtown. I was in Austin during South by Southwest, and we finished with our, pizza parties of building IKEA furniture. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I'm actually sitting in the office working. The day's starting to kind of, wrap up. And because of what we did with Mac Observer, South by had always given me a press pass to go, and I had never gone. And I thought, oh, well, let me see what's happening tonight. Like, I'm going to be downtown at my hotel. We don't have a pizza party to throw. And I look, it's like, oh my gosh, like Van Morrison is playing at La Zona Rosa at 8:00. REM is playing at Stubbs at midnight. And there's lots of other things to be able to do in between. I'm like, oh, hey, Ferb, I guess I know what I'm doing tonight, And so ever since then, I've just gone back for it, not just for the music, but the film festival and everything else. It's really fantastic. So yeah. After I explained this to you last year, I called you the next day after that. This is 2008 or whatever. I was like, we were morons. We shouldn't have ignored this. But talking about attending for the first time. What are some of the things that and we've been we're recording this on March 1st. It comes out on March 2nd. South by is, 10 days away or something like that at this point. So a lot of the learnings have happened, but I'm just curious if you could describe your approach into this. What are you learning that would have been valuable to know, 3 months ago, like that kind of, and what do you know now that's valuable right now? And that's where I want to go with this.
I think the whole thing has been really overwhelming. And I think especially this year where everything is overlapping. I know in the past, the different.
You just did. Yeah. You knocked your microphone out. Yeah.
Is it okay now?
It's okay now. Yeah.
It's just been kind of overwhelming thinking about, okay, films and music and everything all at once and conference stuff. And so I've been trying to wrap my head around all of that. I wrapped my head around clothing and what to wear down there because it's something I can physically control. I'm already mostly packed, which is insane for me. I'm usually the kind of person that packs the day before. But that felt like something I could control.
Sure.
I've had to learn about the different badge types and reservations and what you can reserve ahead of time and what you can't reserve ahead of time. The whole process of booking our first opening of Reservations was insane.
Well, and that was new. So there is what's called Reservations this year is something that's been an evolving thing. I don't want to say moving target, although that would be one accurate way to look at it. But an evolving thing, depending on your badge type and how you go, and we'll talk about that. They started a thing. Gosh, I don't know when they started it. Probably, sometime 10 years ago, where you could get a skip the line pass for select events. And the number of skip the line passes that you could get was dependent on your badge type. And again, I'm being nebulous about it because it's changed almost every year. They just keep making tweaks to the system, and all of the systems have kind of worked from my standpoint. I'm sure they have some logistics things that they prefer, but the systems have worked. And the things that have changed are the number of skip the line passes, which events are eligible for skip the line passes, and when you can attempt to get your skip the line passes. Initially, it was 24 hours before the event began. And that was, it was always funny because you'd be in the middle of a movie, watching a movie, and phones would come out so that people could get their passes. And that is completely frowned upon when watching a movie, except for, well, they kind of created this scenario. And so it was, sort of, tacitly permitted, we know what you're going to do, and then you're going to put your phone away and everything's fine. It was like, okay, but that was annoying. And then they started doing it 9 a.m. the day before the event. So if your event was on a Wednesday, you'd get it on 9 a.m. on Tuesday, you get up. Last year, I think for the first time, if you had a platinum badge, you could do it at 9 a.m. 2 days before. And then people with film, whatever they call the interactive badge, the tech badge, and the music badge could do it 9 a.m. the day before. And so that was the first time I think that platinum badges, certainly that I can remember, that platinum badges had a time advantage on reserving these skip the line passes. They've called them South by Express passes up until this year, and now they are simply called reservations. What I've noticed, well, the two things that I've noticed. Number one, far less events are eligible for reservations. It used to be pretty much everything you could get an express pass for. All the showcases being the music performances, certainly all the films, and I guess most of the keynote conference sessions. This year, I would say it's all of the films, but it's very limited on the music showcases, which ones you can get a pass for, which isn't a terrible thing because I had wound up wasting, quote unquote, express passes for certain music showcases that clearly I didn't need, nor did the venue even understand what they were. I would show up with this pass and they'd be like, well, I don't know. There was one time I showed up with a pass to a club to see Bowling for Soup, and it was a huge line out front. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is weird. And then I realized, oh, these are just people. They aren't letting anyone in. Evidently, there was a private party in there. So I just went up to the front of the line and I showed them my express pass. And I'm like, oh, I have this, like, I don't know what the timing is or whatever. They're like, oh, well, if you got this skip the line pass, you just go in now. I was like, okay. It was one of Mark Cuban's private parties. So I got to talk to Mark Cuban, eat some of his food and have some of his free drinks. And then, then they let the rest of the people in. And it didn't really, other than the food and the drinks and, the conversation, I talked with the guys in Bowling for Soup because they were just kind of hanging out and talking to Mark Cuban. Other than that, it didn't really matter that I got in early. Like it was a fairly small club and, I just was able to it wasn't overpacked or anything. It was just one of those things. But it was just like, that's just to show that some clubs just don't know. But this year, the process of, instead of it being, a day or 2 days out, it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks out that the reservation window opened. And so we had to do, this was completely foreign to me, that we did our first batch of reservations long before we were even planning to get our boarding passes and check in for our flights. So that part was a little bizarre to me. And we had to book every day of South by Southwest reservations at the same time, which was also interesting. And their systems weren't quite ready for it. But thankfully, just being persistent tech people that we are, we were able to kind of persist. It took 30 minutes to get 7 days of reservations. It should have taken about 3 minutes, but they seem to have worked that out since then. They learned, but that's fine. That's fine.
I was thankful during that whole process. I had known you to have me prep. So I was able to sit down and make a schedule of what I wanted to see and what days, because I only had 3 passes per day. I don't know how we would have gotten through that reservation process without having sat down ahead of time and written all that down. And it was like buying concert tickets. It was just insane how we had to just go boom, boom, boom and keep trying everything.
But it was like buying 20 concert tickets at once. Quite literally, maybe more, right? Because there's 8 days of it, I think, or 7 days. I guess 7 days. Yeah, 7
But
days.
if we hadn't prepared ahead of time, to sit there and try and read about the movies as you were trying to book things, there's no way.
You would have missed them. I mean, in the end, you wouldn't have, because the system basically shut down the moment that reservations, it was just overloaded. So the system cratered. But if you didn't have a plan ahead of time in a normal world, like in previous years, you would not get your passes. I mean, I would set my alarm, when it was 9 a.m. Central, I would set my alarm for 8:50 a.m., which was almost too early, because then I would, you'd be out late or whatever. And it's like, oh shoot, I'm starting to fall asleep waiting for the clock to tick 9. But before I went to bed the night before, I would look through the appropriate day's events, figure out, okay, these are the if I get 4 of them or 3 of them or whatever it is, I am going to, these are the 5 or 6 that I would want. And I would arrange my browser tabs in the order that I felt was most important. And that was always that maybe there's a lesson here, because things, when it was one day at a time, popular events, like I would, if I picked my first thing, if I, refresh right at 9 o'clock and then, reserve, I would get the first thing. But the second and the third thing I could miss out on if other people wanted those and prioritize them. So it was the prioritization process was a mix of what's the most important thing to me versus what do I think is going to be the most important thing to the masses? Because even my most important thing might actually be third on my list, because I know that, these other two things are important, but they're way more important to other people than they are to me, but I still want to go. So I need to go and grab that first to get it ahead of the other people. And where the reservations really pay off, in my experience, are generally in this order: movies, music showcases, and then sessions. And I might even reverse the last two. It might be music sessions and music showcases. Generally speaking, it's not that difficult to get into a music showcase if you have a platinum badge, and even a music badge. But certainly the platinum badge, that they have different lines at each event, and so the platinum badge generally kind of holds a lot of juice for music showcases. There have been a few, and I've talked about those on actually different this podcast and other podcasts. But by and large, you're going to be able to get in. Movies, if you don't have if I don't have a reservation for a movie, I'm not going to the movie. Like that's just because I only have there's other things I want to do in Austin, and I don't want to be in line for a movie for 2 hours. And that's what happens for popular movies. But if you have the reservation, you get there, 40 minutes before it starts, and you just kind of walk in ahead of all those people that have been in line for hours and hours in the sun. And so I won't go to a movie if I don't have a reservation.
I might have to this time because I didn't prioritize properly. And there's that one horror movie that I thought, oh, that's not going to be that popular.
Did you check for it again after the reservations open again?
Yeah, it's been booked solid.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of how it goes sometimes is you just, the whole week, despite planning, is this process of having, I don't just have one plan for any given time slot. I have 5 or 6, and Josh and I talked about this last year. And then even if I have a reservation for something, it's a series of Sophie's choices all week long. You're like, well, okay, do I feel like going to a movie right now? Do I feel like going to a showcase right now? Is there a session that I just heard about and it seems like there's something more interesting happening here than I realized? That's the biggest question to leave your mind open to have answered for you by others is this thing that I overlooked actually going to be more interesting for me than I thought? And it's the only way you find out about that stuff is when you talk with other people. And then it works out great. And I mean, that's true of a lot of things in life, right? But South by is kind of a shining example of that. And then also, where am I in downtown, or where do I want to be next? Do I want to walk, or take a scooter or whatever all the way to the other side of things for this one thing and then have to come back? And you're just making those choices all the time. But it really comes down to planning ahead. To your point.
Do we ever get to eat while we're there? Sounds like all we do is run.
Yeah, you eat while you're running. That's generally what I do. I mean, I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've sat down for a meal at South by in the last, I don't know how many years. I mean, it's like, and I mean sit down like in a restaurant. Like sometimes I'll go to the food truck pod and grab something and sit at like one of the picnic tables, but that's a 15-minute thing, and then it's like, okay, great. Now the club right there, there's a band starting in 4 minutes, or there's a session, so I'm just going to duck back in and go. So, yeah, it's a marathon that's like also sprinting.
I feel like I should have been physically preparing for this trip as well as mentally.
Yeah, I don't know.
A little late now.
Yep. So, in addition to reservations, what else kind of jumps out at you?
Curious about the app and how that's all going to work out. I've been playing with that a little bit, but trying to figure out, I have my badge, and I linked my badge number into the app. So I've been putting things on a calendar, even if I don't have reservations for them. So like you said, I can look and see the time and whatever. But I'm wondering if there's any tips or tricks about that app that I need to know ahead of time.
So, yeah, okay. The app is great for what it is. I do all of my planning on a computer with a big screen and a web browser with many tabs. And my planning process starts sometime in January, maybe February, where I go through and I know which venues are going to have the events that I don't want to lose track of, right? And so those venues would be, generally speaking, music venues and movie theaters. I know them, like, for example, the Paramount Theater is where all of the world premieres, most of the world premieres that happen at South by, the ones that South by has deemed these are a big deal because it's the largest movie theater that South by has. I think it's like 800 seats or something. It's a beautiful theater. Not the most comfortable seats, but they are what they are. And so like I know I want to look at everything that's happening at any of these venues, the Paramount being one, Antone's being another. Antone's is a music venue. Other music venues that I look at are Stubbs, the ACL Live, the Austin City Limits Live venue, which is the big theater that's kind of inside the W Hotel. It's about a 2,000 person theater. I've seen a lot of great bands there. I mean, that's where I saw Green Day. I saw Dolly Parton there. I've seen, like lots and lots of great things. So I know to pay attention to those venues because that's where, again, South by are going to put the things that they deem are going to be popular. And they're just managing it based on certainly by size, and there's probably some horse trading that goes along with prestige. Like, oh, well, you could have your movie premiere at the State Theater, but we really want it to be at the Paramount. Like that whole thing like, makes people feel better. I don't know. I'm just presuming. But that I look at those, but that's not going to get you everything. I can't even remember the name of the club where I saw Baseball Project all those years ago because I didn't know what Baseball Project was. This was because I was talking to someone. I was actually back when express passes were gotten not by getting up and looking on your computer at 9 a.m., but by getting up and going and getting in line at the convention center for when they handed them out to you at 9 a.m. But you would sit because you'd be there early because it's a line, and you'd talk to other people and find out. And I found out, who's this band Baseball Project? Oh, it's Steve Wynn from Dream Syndicate, and Peter Buck from REM plays bass in this band, and Scott McCoy from REM's touring band plays guitar. And it's like, oh my gosh. And that's where I wound up talking to Mike Mills, and then Mike Mills played. And there were 20 to maybe 25 of us in the club, including Peter Buck, Mike Mills, and Michael Stipe from REM. But there was a tiny little room, and it was not full. But you don't like. It's just so that's the other part is you can't look at. I can't look at everything that's there. Maybe I'm sitting here thinking about this. Maybe, this is a good use for like AI. You just feed it the whole thing. And if it knows what you like, it might be able to suss some of it out. I might try some of that between now and then. Why not?
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like the music part is really hard for me. Not knowing a lot of the bands so far that we've seen.
Sure.
So what I've kind of done so far is scheduled all those movies, and I'm kind of figuring that I'm going to end up blowing a lot of the movies off and going to music showcases. But I'm not excited about the music part yet because I just don't. I don't know. Like I've been able to plan movies, and
Yes.
I see what's going on there, and I can be excited about some of those movies that we're hopefully maybe going to get to see. But I know the reason I'm going to South by is for the music, but I'm also knowing that I'm going to follow your lead, and when I'm exhausted, I'm going to go sleep and let you go do your thing.
That's a smart move. I'm kind of a maniac at these things. I don't expect anyone to keep up with me. People, even Josh is like, oh, we should sit down for a meal at some point. Like we did that in Chicago 2 weeks later. after South by Southwest because I was out there for a show. It's like, dude, I don't sit down for a meal. I don't sit down here. It's like that doesn't compute for me. So yeah, don't try to keep up with me. It's bad. As far as the app, to get to that question, and then yes, I want to talk about this other thing. But as far as the app goes, you can favorite events, essentially saying, I want this event on my calendar. And I favorite everything. A lot of times I'll favorite things before they've even been assigned a time slot. If I know there's a band I want to see or something like that, I'll favorite them. And then it starts to flesh it out. I sync that with my calendar on my phone and on my computer. And it's a mess. I mean, there's 4 or 5 things at any given time slot, and it's always crazy. And so I will use the app to get more information about something, but I'm not using it to find things that I don't yet know about, if that makes sense. You could, but my brain and workflow perform better with doing it on a larger screen where I can actually see things and I can have multiple things up at once. Whereas in the app, obviously it's an iPhone, so it's modal and you're only getting one thing at a time and jumping around to different things. It's not like having different browser tabs open. Once you move on, there's no I want to see the thing I looked at 3 screens ago. It's like, well, hopefully you remember what that is. I mean, it's just, I think that's not the fault of South by. That's just the app experience, right? You're seeing one thing at a time. And so I find that that the app, again, is great. When you sync your calendar to your phone, when you click on something for more information, it brings it up in the app. And what's cool on site about the app is the world of conference apps, if any of you have ever been to a conference and used an app, they're all kind of terrible because it's something that people develop for use 1 week out of any given year. So any bugs that are found, they're not going to be fixed for that year, right? Because there's not enough time, right? So they're intentionally feature limited. With that said, South by's app is one of the best that I've ever used. I mean, South by is kind of a nerdy conference. And one of the things that they have in there for all of the events is a green, yellow, red capacity meter. So in real time, you can say, all right, you know what? This thing that I'm at sucks. There's 3 other things on my calendar. What else is here? And what could I jump to? That's really helpful for music showcases and sessions. For films, maybe less so. But again, I've never gone to a film that I didn't have an express pass for. So
it's like Disney World.
Yes.
Should I go to this ride or that ride? Which one's green?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's really helpful. And the app is great for that. They really work to keep it. I don't know what their systems are like and how much is just automated versus manual, but they, it works well. It is, in my experience, surprisingly accurate. It's not perfect, obviously. They're using data that existed as of some moment in time to tell you what something's going to be like in a future moment in time, right? Because you're not there now. You're finding out if you should go there, right? So there's got to be some prediction algorithms in there. And I've seen where it's green. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll go to that. And you get there and it's like, oh, I would not have called this green, But the opposite's also true. I'm like, wow, it's red, but let me see. You never know. And then you get there and it's like, oh, I can just duck around. Maybe I'm not sitting right in the front. I'm in the back for some session, but I'm in the room and, they make sure the sound is good. That is one thing. The sound is always good at music venues.
Huh.
Yes, it is shocking. I've seen sound engineers toward the end of the festival literally falling asleep at the consoles. These people take, a lot of shifts, but they are all very skilled. And the sound systems that they use for every venue are top notch. They will bring in different systems if the house system is not up to snuff for what South by deems appropriate.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you always, it's going to be loud because of that. They close mic everything and all of that, even in clubs where you might not need that, but that gives the engineer more control. And if normally the club would be, 92, 93 dB, if they're willing to let it go to 100, and they are, then they can, mic everything. And if the guitar player is too loud on stage, it's like, well, okay, I'll just bring the rest of the band up over them and you can still hear. And I mean, it's loud, but you obviously are going to bring earplugs, right? We listen to Gig Gab. We know about this. So it always sounds good, even if it's loud.
Interesting.
Yeah. There was a band I saw last year that was at 112 dB in this club. I mentioned it on the show and they wrote me back and they're like, "We are so sorry. We have no control." I'm like, "Oh, I know you have no control over this. This is not your thing." I just mentioned it because it seemed a little excessive and unnecessary for the type of band that they were. But again, this is, the engineer wanting it to be clear and have everything present. And it sure was. It was just like, wow, even with earplugs in, like, this is loud. But it's fine. It was 45 minutes and then you move on. So 40. And that was the interesting thing about my gig on Saturday was it was like an immersion into a taste. I don't want to say immersion, a taste into that South by world. It was like, oh, right, I'm going to see a lot of this with people, everybody on stage with, thumbs up or thumbs down. And there's a lesson in that when you're playing at a festival, knowing how to be efficient at getting what you need to survive on stage. It's not going to be perfect, but, setting the bar where you need it to be set and then having the whole band be really efficient of, when they were like working with, the cello mic or whatever, the cello signal, everybody's just like putting their thumbs in the air to get more of it until you have enough. And then you just take your thumb down and everybody's doing it. And that way there's no conversation. Hey, can I get more of this? Can I get more of that? The engineer can just look at the stage, see, and you can just be really efficient as you're doing line checks and run around the stage. And then everybody gets what they need. Mostly. It's not going to be perfect. I have complaints about Saturday. We'll leave those. But, we started at 4:00, right? And so that's the thing, because generally speaking, if it's your fault that you start late, you will end on time. And that's always, they make that very clear at festivals in general and at South by. So learning to be efficient, and not just you, but making sure all of your bandmates are on the same page. Whatever your system is to communicate this stuff, make sure everybody's doing it the same. The engineers, if they're good, will adapt to you, especially if the whole band is acting the same way. And that thumbs up, thumbs down thing, or just put your hand down if you're done. If you have everything you need for that particular, whatever, instrument they're working on, take that down and you're good to go. But yeah, so I know that was a little tangent, but that's what we do here. The app works. It works well. Yeah. That's
cool. I didn't realize about the color coding. That's super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it works. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it works. Yeah. What else you got? What other things have you learned and questions do you have?
Oh man, the whole thing is just overwhelming. What about security? Like, as someone who goes to a lot of concerts, I'm used to the clear bag thing, or, you can't bring a backpack. And I know being out of our hotel and running all day, I'm going to want to have stuff with me.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to bring a normal purse? What's security like at clubs there?
I think the answer is yes. I generally don't. I use my pockets. Okay. For my stuff, but I there are plenty of guys and women who use bags or whatever. And I see a lot of people carrying backpacks with them, and that generally is okay. There are some clubs, Stubbs, I know is much tighter about that. Most of these clubs are just even though it's a South by showcase at whatever bar it is. It's the bar staff that's managing things. So it's not like going to a concert.
Yep.
You're not going through metal detectors. You're not doing all that, except at Stubbs and at ACL Live. I think those are the two that it feels more like the concert experience. Antone's is a club. I mean, I've played there. It's a big club, but it's not a concert venue in that sense. But they've been tighter. Antone's and Stubbs are the only two places I've ever had my water bottle taken from me. I always have a bottle of water with me, but I know that it could be taken, so I don't keep a reusable bottle of water. It's just a bottle of water that I've had for the day, and I might be refilling it or whatever. But if at any point I have to say goodbye to it, it's like, yep, whatever. I'll just get one in there. I'll pay to get another one. Pay some exorbitant price to get a bottle of water. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? They have their security restrictions for themselves. So yeah.
And
Works
with
out.
the showcases in and out is normal and expected and
Yes, you can. Yeah, yeah. In and out privileges are fine, even at like a Stubbs place or an ACL Live. But once you leave, you have to get to the back of whatever your line is. So, like I've done that before, where it's like, well, I want to see the 8 o'clock band here, and also the 11 o'clock band here. But at 9 o'clock, there's a band, or at 10 o'clock, there's a band I want to see over there. Do I leave here? And I usually make that decision based on how full is it when I'm ready to leave, right? And you're like, okay, how do I feel about rolling these dice? And, I mean, sometimes I'll go and look at, like, is there a line? What's that look like outside? I'm making a decision. Okay, I think I'm going to hang, that kind of thing. So, but again, the Platinum Badge, and I highly recommend anybody going to South by just get the Platinum Badge. Actually, I shouldn't recommend that because the more, if the Platinum Badge becomes the norm, then it loses its power. But so yeah, everybody get just wristbands and you're done and everything's great. No. The Platinum Badge is well worth it. And we bought yours when they did their pre-sale, I think during South by or right after South by last year. So we were able to get your Platinum Badge for less than $1,000. And I think now they're $1,800 or something. So yeah, almost double the price of what we paid.
And buying it when I was all wrapped up in the excitement, now I couldn't back out, which I considered. But
listen,
now I'm in.
They're in the conference business, right? So scarcity is a part of that whole marketing message. And there's things to be learned about that too for our bands, right? When you put tickets on sale, we have a limited number of tickets at this price, or a limited number of tickets that come with the first 50 tickets get a special thing. Like the human nature is human nature. So scarcity, we call it FOMO, right? Whatever it is, you can capture that and take advantage of it and capitalize on it. And it, in a sense, it's good for everybody. I mean, it's good for you. You got a ticket for basically half price. And then you had a year to plan too. It wasn't like, hemming and hawing at the last minute. Should I go? Should I not go? I don't know. It's expensive. I could do other things, whatever. It's like, nope, you already got the ticket. So you're going now, figure it out. Oh, I think you knocked your mic again.
I didn't touch it.
Yeah, there's something with that microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah. No? There you go. You're done.
Is it there?
It's there.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll have to look at that.
I did not touch it that time, so I don't know what's going on.
It's a Heil PR40, but I've had that mic for 100 years. That was my primary podcasting mic. So I think the hum that I thought was in the other cable is probably in the connection on that mic. I think there's a cold solder joint or a lukewarm solder joint inside there. But we'll figure that out. That's all fine. I know what to do. One option is just to use a different microphone, but we'll get that mic fixed. You were saying?
I lost track.
Yeah, it happens. Happens to me all the time.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. I have, if you want to see what Lisa looks like, you're not going to see it on the picture of this episode, the episode image, because even though Lisa is the reason that we have most episodes, you see the guest's picture on the, on the episode image. And it was because she said, I would really like to know what these people look like that I'm hearing about. Obviously you can watch the video and see what they look like. But if and most of you are consuming the audio version of this, then you obviously don't get video. And so that's why the episode images generally have a large picture of the guest right there on it. At least one of the conditions of this appearance by Lisa and her press management team was that would not happen for this. So if you want to see what Lisa looks like, you either need to come and run into us at South by Southwest or just watch the video of this episode. Assuming the video works okay, which I think it will. But the only other question I had was, are there any restaurants you want to visit? We lived in Austin for a long time in the late 90s. And so most of those restaurants have gone away. But I was just curious if there's anything that you're looking forward to in Austin in general.
I mean, I'll need to eat some good brisket for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, East Side Cafe has been gone for a long time. That was always my Austin go-to.
Yeah. Yeah. East Side Cafe was great. But that's been gone almost 10 years, I think. Yeah. Yeah. I always loved that place. It was fun. I'm trying to think. You got anything else on your list? Did we miss anything? Did we detour away from something that we should have gotten back to?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much, yeah, concerns about clothing, because to me, rock concert versus conference is very different clothing. So I'm trying to reconcile that in my head, but I'll get there.
Yeah. Austin is a pretty casual city in general. That's always been true. And South by is a very casual conference. In general, especially in the last 10 years, conferences in general, people have any expectations of wearing like dressy footwear have gone out the window at conferences in general, right? Because people know you're going to be on your feet for many days in a row. Wear what's comfortable. Nobody cares what you have on your feet. I mean, they might care, but they understand, right? Like they'll notice it and be like, hey, are those comfortable? Even though they look like completely opposite of whatever your outfit is, it's fine. But, outfits for the conferences, I've never felt out of place showing up in a t-shirt and shorts for a conference session. Yeah. If I'm going, that's different though. That is Dave in attendee mode, right?
Yep.
If I'm going and I'm going to go to like a meeting with someone that I've scheduled, for like a Backbeat Media, like a sales meeting or a PR meeting for GigGab or MacGeekGab or whatever, I will be aware of how I'm presenting my brand in those things that are intentional meetings. If I happen to run into somebody though, and start talking with them when I'm in attendee mode, and then suddenly it's like, oh, you're shifting now. This is work time. It's fine. Like, I don't wear ratty clothes. I look presentable, but I might be presentable in a logo t-shirt or something, and it's fine. I mean, if I'm wearing shorts, it's because it's, 95 degrees outside, and everybody's going to be aware of that. It's fine. Yeah. Yeah. It's not, I've never had an issue with it. I'm sure, I know, because we've watched some of the videos. People are like, oh, you got to wear this and look cute and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, you do you. It's all good. But nobody, in general, I don't see people care about that. So
I'll have my hokas ready to go, and anything else is.
Yeah. But the tough part is, my experience with the weather the week of South by in general. And this one's different. The schedule is shifted. It's starting about 3 days later than it used to, and ending about 4 days later than it used to, ish. And there is often a period of 3 or 4 days of rain, usually at the beginning of South by. I know that sounds really strange to say when it's this annual thing and you can't predict the weather, but more often than not, the interactive part of it, whatever they would call the interactive part of it, the beginning part of it, there would be a lot of like gloomy weather, and then the music festival would happen, and the heavens part, and there's sun, and it's awesome. And I don't know how they work that out every year, but they sure have seemed to work that out. But this year, music runs the whole length of the festival. That's never happened before. And again, I don't know what that's going to be like when we're on the ground. So, yeah. It's tough. You got to pack things for 60-degree weather and 90-degree weather. Generally not any colder than that, maybe warmer than that. But, this is that period of time when the weather heats up in Texas. It's, it's just how it is. One thing we sort of glossed past on the schedule is you said that we have a lot of movies reserved, which is true. And that's because even, here we are on March 1st, late in the day on March 1st, March 9th is when we fly out, I want to say. March 11th, sorry, is when we fly out. We fly out Wednesday the 11th. The conference starts on the 12th. We don't know the schedule for most of the showcases. Like, it's been announced that Lainey Wilson and Charlie Crockett are each going to perform showcases at South by, for example, which is no great surprise. They each have movies happening at South by. So of course, I knew when I saw that there was a Lainey Wilson movie, I'm like, oh, Lainey will be there for the premiere, and she'll do a Q&A with, the film, like the principals of the film and the directorial team and all that stuff. She'll be there for that. And then also she's going to do a showcase because that's just what happens. And then about 2 weeks ago, something like that, South by officially announced, yes, there's the Lainey Wilson showcase. There'll be a Lainey Wilson and Charlie Crockett. They haven't announced Jack Johnson's showcase, but he also has a movie premiering. So I just assume that that's going to happen, and that's fine. Also not announced. But even though the Lainey Wilson and Charlie Crockett ones have been announced, they're not on the schedule. I don't know when or where they're happening. We can make some educated guesses based on everything we've already talked about in the episode, but it's like, that's today. And we're leaving in, less 2 weeks from now, we're going to be in the thick of it. So this is how it is. You just kind of have to keep your ear to the ground the whole time. And there's, you can get online. There's Discord groups about South by. There's good Twitter/X accounts to watch. And I'll put some of those in the links here, but they will be, please, that they will be woefully incomplete and probably antiquated. They change all the time. You just got to hunt and look. And I've never really dove into that because I just don't there's only so much you can do. But listen to people, talk to people, find people who are in those Discord groups and ask them, what are you doing? What have you heard? And, get them excited and everybody will talk, and tell people what you're excited about. And that's really the best advice I can give is just talk to people. When you're waiting for a showcase to happen or you're waiting in line for a film, talk to the people around you. They share at least some similar interest to you. And probably you can learn things from each other about that week at South by, plus all the other sort of life things that you can learn from meeting someone with similar interests that you don't know. But certainly about, South by week. So.
I'm finding it hard to imagine going to South by for the first time without someone knowledgeable by my side. I think I'm extra thankful that I've got that going for me.
South by Sherpa.
Yep.
Yeah. I was going to say I could get a shirt that says that, but then, oh my gosh.
Everybody would want you.
Right. And I actually have work to do. I always joke that they created the platinum badge for me, and I tell them that. Because of the 3 podcasts I do, right? There's this one, there's Business Brain for entrepreneurs, and then there's Mac Geek Gab for the tech stuff, and South by has all 3. And I am always serendipitously surprised. I'll go to see some documentary or something, and sometimes it'll be like, all right, this is a guilty pleasure. I'm going to go to this. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what a great business lesson. This is going to be perfect for Business Brain. Or, whoa, that blew me away. We're going to talk about that on Gig Gab. I don't necessarily know where I'm going to find the content that's valuable to share with all of you and my other audiences too, until after it's happened. It really, but all of it winds up being relevant. But so I don't really have time to Sherpa around a group of people. I'm curious how it's going to be Sherpaing you around. So, but we'll find out. So, yeah. Any other questions? Any other things to say before we go?
I think I'm good. I mean, I'm not good. I'm petrified, but I shall survive. I shall have fun. And yeah. Yeah.
I think we're going to have fun. I think it'll be good. The nice part from my standpoint, the nice part about this year is a reset. So this would be radically different for me, even if my trip down and trip back were the same, AKA I was going solo, right? I know that it's not going to be the same because all the habits, I know where to go to get my badge. Well, not this year. Well, I know where nope, not this year. I know, it's all different. I know what day things start. Nope, not this year. So, I mean, I do know what days things start. They all start at the same time. They end at the same time. So it's just different. And so I don't know how to pace myself through this at all.
That reminds me, the badge thing. I've seen a lot about that. Is that something we have to sign up of when we're going to go get it? I know I've seen a lot of go here or go here, and there's times and.
No, you don't. There's no reserving or scheduling. Okay. You just I usually get off the plane, get to my hotel, and then go get my badge. And oftentimes, I think our flight's fairly early in the day. Yeah, we'll be on the ground by, I think, 4:00 or something, if everything goes according to plan, of course. And I think badge pickup closes at 8 or 9. So I mean, without your badge, you aren't, even if there's a showcase at 11 p.m. or something, or a film at 11 p.m., and we're getting there a day before anyway, so it won't matter. But if you don't have your badge, you're not getting in.
Yep.
So it's go, figure out before you leave for the trip where and when your badge pickup options are so that you can just prioritize that and go and get it. And you might have to wait in line there. I know that this year there are some places that have separate platinum lines, and not all of them have separate platinum lines. Some of them have separate media lines. I get a press badge, so I have to go on a different line than you and deal with all of that. I think. I mean, we'll find out. But yeah.
I'm going to put an air tag on my badge. I lose everything.
It's not a bad idea. My issue is, I forget to, I have a system now for conferences. I hang my badge on my hotel room door so that I can't walk out the door without my badge on. Cause I don't know what I'm going to be wearing. Like, I might bring my backpack. I might not. I might be wearing a jacket and a sweater, or I might be, in a t-shirt and shorts and nothing else, depending on where I'm going, what the temperature is, like all those things. And that's just too much to say. Like at like a tech conference, I get back to my room at night, I take my badge off, I put it in my backpack, and then I know I'm going to have it when I'm halfway to wherever I'm going the next day. It's like, oh, yep, I already have my badge. That is not the case at South by. So yeah, hang your badge on your door. And I even do that. Like I did that at NAMM, and I think I did it at CES too. Oh no, CES I would put it in my backpack because I wouldn't leave without it. But yeah, so yeah, don't forget. The trick is, it's like, oh, I'm going to go down to breakfast. Okay, what am I going to do with my badge now? I don't want to wear it to breakfast.
Wearing it to breakfast.
Wearing it to breakfast. Sometimes. Yeah, people do. It's totally fun. Wow. That just jumped right in, didn't it? I don't know why that happened. That was fun. Why are we playing the outro all of a sudden? Huh. Love that.
I guess it's time.
It is time, actually. I went to hit a different button and suddenly it was just playing the outro. Do you want people to be able to find you on social media? If so, tell them where, or otherwise just tell them to find me.
No, they can go find you.
That's what I thought. Yeah, okay. I like to give every guest the opportunity. I figured I knew what your answer was, but I never like to assume. There is one thing that I like to always do, though, but I'm going to leave it to you to say that as we say goodbye to everybody.
I know that. You got to always be performing.
Got it. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. My guess is our kids will be probably the most surprised by this.
Shocked. I made sure I didn't say anything to them.
Same. I'll see you next week, folks. We've got, candidly, I'm not even going to tell you who we have because I don't know. I have like 3, maybe 4 episodes lined up to record this week, but 2 of them are people that we have because of technical difficulties, we have logistical difficulties, I'll call it, not necessarily technical. We have pushed them off several times. So we have people and we will talk, or I'll do a solo episode. You never know, but always be performing. See you next week. Bye.